What's going on, guys? Welcome back to a brand new video. So the other day I decided to go onto the Gran Turismo Facebook group and asked them a simple question. What were the top 3 tracks that they just absolutely hated or just disliked? Now, the results that came back from that poll question were honestly very interesting. I was not expecting some of the tracks that a lot of people decided. So with that being said, I decided to combine and tally up all the tracks that everybody hated and just disliked and put onto a large spreadsheet. And on that spreadsheet, I came up with the top 5 most hated racetracks on Gran Turismo 7. So before we jump into it, if you guys disagree with this video, feel free to leave it in the comments down below. But please do not come after me. I'm just a messenger. I didn't make this list off of my own opinions. This is just a tally of everybody that I took from that Facebook group. So if you guys disagree, don't come after me. Now, with that being said, before we jump into the list, if you guys really enjoy the content, feel free to smash that like button for the YouTube algorithm and hit that red subscribe button down below to catch more Gran Turismo 7 content and other racing content that I do here on the channel. Now, anyways, let's jump into the list. All right, so starting off our list here on number 5, it's going to be the Tokyo Expressway. Now, the Tokyo Expressway, I actually was not surprised to see on this list, as I can understand why a lot of people really don't like this track. Now, one big criteria that this track has compared to all the other tracks is that it is an enclosed track located here in Tokyo, Japan. And due to the fact that it's just in an enclosed racetrack, it can cause a lot of frustration, especially when you get paired up with a lot of drivers that are just super aggressive or very dirty. Now, with these walls come a lot of issues, as if you just accidentally make contact with them, you run the risk of getting not only a slowdown penalty, but just losing a ton of time compared to your competitors, as it just knocks you down about a good 5, 10, even 15 miles per hour if you hit it hard enough. Now, one good thing that Tokyo Expressway does have, in my opinion, is a lot of these layouts are actually very unique and a lot of fun. When you do time trials or even race with the AI, these can lead to some really fun and great moments that you have on some of these tracks, especially when you go down some of these very long straights that have a lot of slipstream. I just think it's a lot of fun, and it also causes a lot of overtaking opportunities. So when you get a very good lobby or just a race with a lot of clean drivers, these Tokyo Expressway tracks can be very fun. But again, when you get put into a lobby that has a lot of dirty drivers or just people that are just super aggressive, this can be probably one of the worst tracks for you in this entire game, just due to the fact that you're just gonna run into the wall and it's just gonna be a penalty galore when you do these races. So that is why I believe Tokyo Expressway made it to number 5. Now, going into number 4, here we have another Japanese track, and it's actually a real one, of SUZUKA Circuit. Now, this one, I can see why people don't really like it that much. It is a very fun track, probably one of the best tracks layout in the game, in my opinion, especially when you're doing hot lap or just doing a competitive race, as it just allows for a lot of overtaking opportunities. A very unique course where you have a windy S section, a very fast first corner, and don't even get me started on 130R. But yeah, this track, I can see why it can be the bane for a lot of people, just due to the fact that it's a very narrow course. It gets widened up on the straights, and as well as when you're going in through Spoon and before 130R, but throughout the remainder of the track, where it's very windy or just tight corners, especially heading to Degner 1, Degner 2, it really is a tight track that doesn't allow for a lot of mistakes. If you do accidentally go wide or just take the corner a bit too narrow, you run the risk of getting into the grass or just dabbing in a tire into a rumble strip that ends up spinning you out, and it can lead to a lot of frustration because you have to be just pinpoint accurate on this racetrack at all times. And especially when you're doing a very competitive race or just racing this track on a daily race, it can lead to a lot of frustration when you're doing so well, and then coming to the end, you just lose concentration just for that split second, and you accidentally dap a tire into the grass and spin yourself out. So due to these reasons, I can see why SUZUKA can be a very hated track, and it's also not that good for beginners. If you are a beginner on this game and you decide to just hop onto SUZUKA circuit, it can be the lead to a lot of controllers breaking, and as well as steering wheels getting thrown out the window. So that's why I believe SUZUKA circuit was ranked number 4. Now coming into number 3, this one actually was a little bit of a surprise to me, and that is going to be the circuit of Interlagos. Now this Brazilian track is home to an F1 race, to a lot of different events, and it seems that everyone has the same take that they really enjoy this racetrack and they really love the racing here. So that's why I'm really shocked that this came in at number 3. But some of the reasonings that I read on the Facebook group was the fact that this track has a lot of corner cutting exploits, and not only that, it leads to a lot of ramming just due to the fact that there's a lot of fast corners that lead into a very slow corner, especially throughout the second sector. So going through the second sector, you can get so many good overtaking opportunities, but when you get put into a huge group where you have about 5 or 6 cars, it can lead to a big disaster just due to the fact that you're coming in through a lot of these very quick corners where you're going about 80-100 miles per hour, then all of a sudden you're slowing down to about 30 miles per hour to hit some of these apexes. And just due to the fact that it's such an abrupt slowdown, when you have a big pack of cars, it can lead to a lot of ramming. And not only that, this track also suffers with the same issue that SUZUKA has of if you accidentally dip a wheel into the grass or just accidentally go over a rumble strip incorrectly, it can just loosen the back end of the car and actually spin you out. And that can lead to a lot of frustration, especially if you're running in the front of the pack, or you're just having a really great race and you just accidentally hit these rumble strips incorrectly, or just go a tad bit wide, hit the grass, and you end up spinning yourself out, as that can cost you an easy 5-10 seconds. And due to this track being just so short, you can lose a ton of positions just because usually whenever you do a lot of these competitive races or just daily races in general, the pack is usually very tight from first place to the last place car. So it can be very frustrating when you lose the back end, spin out, you lose 5-10 seconds, or even get a penalty and you lose 3, 4, 5, even 6 positions, or go all the way to the rear on the opening lap. So that's why Interlagos was picked as the number 3 most hated track. Now coming in at number 2, we had the Nürburgring Nordschleife. And for this track, again, this is another one that I actually was not surprised about, especially if you are just starting off on this game. This is the longest track on the game when you do the Nürburgring Nordschleife, or if you do the 24-hour version. So this is basically the peak of difficulty when it comes to just knowing the layout of the track and just getting an entire lap down correctly, as I don't think anybody on this game can do the Nürburgring perfect. There's always time to be found on a lot of the corners, whether it's the final part of the racetrack, the middle part of the racetrack, the beginning part of the racetrack, or even just the regular GP circuit layout. And that's what leads to a lot of frustration, just due to the fact that you have to do so much practice on this racetrack. You have to put in so much time just to get down the track to not even perfection, but just to be good at this racetrack. And not only that, again, this is another track that suffers with a very narrow road surface, not a lot of runoff areas. So if you accidentally just go a bit wide, or if you just take the corner a bit too narrow, you just end up spinning out just due to the nature of the track. And not only that, if you lose concentration just for even a second, especially through these fast windy sections of the track, you can easily just lose the concentration, just veer right or left and accidentally slam into the wall. And it makes for some very frustrating times, especially when you're, let's say, 3/4 of the way through the Nordschleife and you think that everything was going perfect, and then you accidentally lose a little bit of concentration and boom, you're straight into the wall, or you're spinning out collecting other cars. Now another reason that a lot of people really did not like this track is they feel like this is more of a track that just leads to trains, due to the fact that it's very difficult to overtake on this track due to the nature of the road being just so narrow. So since this is basically a public road that was turned into a racetrack, it leads to a lot of frustration due to on competitive racing or even on daily races, you really can't go for an overtake. You have to really wait for the car ahead to either make a mistake or let you by. If you try going for an overtake, especially through a corner that's very, very blinding, the car can easily just mistakenly not know where you are at and push you off wide, and that is basically race over for you. So it's basically a risk reward type of deal, and how much you have trust in your drivers around you, because if you just go for that overtake and they don't see you, or they're very, very aggressive, they will push you out of the way, and then that's basically going to be race over for you. Now, going back to the challenging nature of this track, this is not a track that you could just throw a newcomer on and then just expect them to do well. No, this track, again, just requires so much attention and just so much practice of just getting down majority of the corners and just knowing how much speed to take into all majority of these corners. As I still haven't even perfected it, and I've done over 50 laps around this racetrack just on this game alone. So with all those combinations, I think that's the reason why this was rated number 2 from the Facebook group. Now, leading into number 1, it is going to be Willow Springs. Now, when I looked at all the comments, it wasn't just one specific Willow Springs, it was all the Willow Springs. Now the reasons people picked this as their number 1 least favorite track were basically of the sand. So it is a very difficult track, as if you go into the sand, you're basically race over, because you're gonna be sent out on the final corner on just Big Willow, or even on the Horse Thief. If you go into the sand, you're just going straight down the mountain and you're losing a lot of positions. But let's just focus on Big Willow for this one. So for Big Willow, it is a very challenging track, I'm not gonna lie. A lot of fast corners and a lot of huge elevation changes that can catch out even the most expert players. Now, with this game, due to the fact that a lot of cars, especially in the rear, have a lack of grip, it just makes it very challenging to go through majority of these corners, especially because there's just so quick corners and the elevation change just disrupts the car so much. And going into the top of the mountain, it can definitely loosen you up a lot. But when you're racing against a very, very competitive group, you're just so on edge and you have to utilize majority of the racetrack. But if you just go a bit beyond the limits, you go into that sand and you dap a tire right into it, and you're accidentally spinning out, going straight into some other part of the racetrack, or some sand pit in the middle of the racetrack. This is another track that you just cannot jump into. You actually have to do a lot of practice, like the Nordschleife. But luckily with this track, it is a very short lap time, as I believe the lap times are between a minute 10 to about a minute 50, depending on what car you're using. But it's a very quick track to learn, but not a quick track to master, as there are just so many ways you can take majority of these corners, so many different racing lines that you can take to maximize the amount of time on this racetrack. But it's also a track that you have to measure your courage, how much you have faith in yourself and how much you have faith in your competitors, because on a lot of these corners you could just take them super duper quick, but you have to have a lot of car control and just a lot of faith in yourself that you can take these corners to the absolute limit. And again, when you're racing with other competitors, sometimes you just go past that limit, and especially on that final corner, if you push it just a bit too much, or you just lose a little bit of concentration, you don't have any runoff area. You're just going into the sand and you're going straight into the barrier, or just going up those hills located on the outside part of the track. And with that being said, that's what leads Willow Springs to be one of the more challenging tracks on this game, and why it was voted number 1 here on the Facebook group. So those were the top 5 most hated tracks on Gran Turismo 7. Let me know what you guys think about this list. Let me know if you guys agree, disagree. Put it in the comments down below, or if you had any other suggestions, also leave those in the comments down below. And again, please don't come after me. I'm just a messenger. I didn't make this list off of my own opinion. I actually asked hundreds of people what their least favorite tracks were, and this is the list that we came up with. So again, let me know what you guys think in the comments down below. And if you guys really enjoyed this video, feel free to smash that like button again for the YouTube algorithm. And if you want to catch more racing content or Gran Turismo 7 content, hit that subscribe button down below. Help us try to reach 10,000 subscribers before the end of the year. And if you guys really enjoyed this video, I really hope to catch you guys on the next one. Peace.